Today, I wanted to talk about theory. And so, before we jump into theories of victimization, we need to be clear on what theory actually is. Because when most people hear the word theory, I think it means a guess, maybe a vibe, a suspiciously confident opinion with no evidence. But in victimology and criminology, theory is not that. A theory is more like a map, it's a structured explanation for why something happens and how it happens. And here's the point: if you don't understand the why and the how, you can't prevent it. You can only react to it. So let me give you a couple real world examples. Imagine your phone keeps dying halfway through the day. You could describe this pattern as my phone dies really fast. That's not theory, that's just pain and also an observation. A theory is when you explain the pattern, why it's happening, and how it's happening. Like, my battery drains fast because I have 27 apps running in the background, or my battery drains fast because the battery itself is damaged, or my battery drains fast because my charger is cheap and it's basically pretending to charge my phone. Those explanations are theories. Notice what happens next. Each theory points to a different solution. If the issue is background apps, you close the apps and you change the settings. If the issue is the battery, you replace the battery. If the issue is the charger, then you should really stop trusting the $4 chargers from the gas station. That's the core idea in victimology, too. Victimology is the phone dying. Theory is our explanation for why it's happening and what we should actually do to change it. And so theory matters a lot, especially when it comes to victimology, because we have a lot of possible explanations for why victimization happens. And the issue is not that there's a lack of ideas. The issue is making sure we don't confuse an idea with a fact. And that's where theory testing comes in. Testing a theory basically means you are making a claim about how the world works. You look for evidence that supports or contradicts that claim, and you adjust what you believe based on what you find with data and the evidence. And this matters because if we don't empirically test theories, we risk building prevention and policy on vibes and stereotypes, or this is how we've always done it, which is not a research method. That's a tradition. We're producing theories faster than we're producing strong tests of the theories we already have. So let's do a victimization example using this logic. Let's say that there is a huge issue on campus. Students keep reporting break-ins and thefts from cars parked in the gateway parking garage. And everybody agrees on one thing: victimization is happening. This is actually just an example. I don't know if there's a bunch of car break-ins in that parking garage, but regardless, victimization is happening. And the question is, why? Why in this specific garage? And when you ask criminologists to explain it, you may get different answers and solutions. Not because anyone is wrong, but because different theories focus on different parts of the problem. Let's say we asked a criminologist about this problem, and she argues that this is about opportunity and guardianship. Cars are being broken into because the garage has blind spots, such as like poor lighting, there's no visible security, and offenders don't think that they'll be caught. And so, what this theory predicts and what this criminologist is predicting is that break ins are going to cluster in the dark corners or isolated levels. Break ins will also be more common when there are fewer people around. So, adding visible guardianship should reduce these incidents. So, prevention strategies like increasing the lighting, installing cameras, patrols, emergency call boxes, signs that say, this area is monitored. And then we need to be able to test it to see if these solutions are addressing the problem. We look at when and where incidents happen. And so if the theory is right, we should actually see patterns that match opportunity and a lack of guardianship. And if we improve the lighting and visibility and the break-ins drop, that supports our theory. But let's say we asked another criminologist who said this is probably more about target selection and vulnerability. So essentially, he's arguing that, it's not about the garage itself. It's actually about vulnerability and how the cars are being targeted. So maybe certain people are being targeted, maybe students with certain cars, or people who leave valuables visible, or people with predictable routines. So what this theory is predicting is that certain cars get hit repeatedly, certain victims have repeat incidents, and then theft is more likely when valuables are left in plain view. And so the prevention strategies we propose might look like, lock it, hide it, keep it campaigns, education about reducing visible valuables, targeted warnings to high risk groups or repeat victims. And then we would need to test this, right? So we could look at police reports or campus incident reports. We can check for repeat victimization. We can look for patterns and what has been taken and what the car situation looked like. If break-ins keep happening even after lighting improves, but they're strongly linked to valuables being visible, that supports this theory more than the first one. So tying it all together, we notice kind of what went on by asking two different criminologists. We asked them about the same problem, that cars were being broken into, but they provided us not only different theories, but different explanations. And those different explanations actually led to totally different solutions. And this is why theory is not just academic. Theory shapes how things operate in real life, what we count as problems, what we can actually measure and observe, what we predict will work, and how we respond to victims. So if we choose the wrong theory, we can not only waste money, but it may fail victims and still not reduce harm. Or even worse, we can blame victims for a problem that is actually structural or situational or even created by the system. So at its core, theory is essentially a structured explanation for why victimization happens and how it happens. It helps us move beyond simply describing patterns of harm, basing it off our vibes, and instead identifying underlying causes, risks, and conditions that actually make victimization more likely to happen. So studying theory matters because it shapes the questions that we ask, the evidence that we collect, and the prevention strategies we choose. So without theory, we're mostly reacting after victimization occurs. But with theory, we can test what actually works. We can improve system responses and reduce harm in real people's lives. And theory sets it up in a way that if one theory doesn't work, then we can test another theory until we can really identify the underlying causes of problems.